Welcome to Talk to Us live streaming, where our team of superheroes explore, experiment, enable, and establish the new work order with confidence. I'm Linda Hammond, and you are watching Sparking Discovery, which is about remaining relevant, which we believe is done by exposing ourselves to thought leaders in their fields. This is where we lean into their experience and gather as much as we can to help us make the right decisions or make the decision right. This evening, I'll be speaking to Ian Mann. I've known Ian since 1998, when he did an intervention with my team, and we've been in contact off and on ever since. It's been the greatest pleasure. Welcome, Ian. Hi. You're with us. So, Ian is a well-respected strategist and leadership advisor. Seasoned entrepreneur. Yes, he doesn't just lecture on it, he does and has done it before as well. A prolific consumer of text and a sought-after contributor to News 24. Very well placed to provide insight into what it takes to be an entrepreneur, as well as provide some direction to those who are feeling a bit out at sea at the moment. Thank you for joining us tonight, Ian.
Pleasure indeed. Nice to be with you.
So let's get into it. You know, when I look at the situation, it reminds me, I'm saying I look at the situation of COVID, it reminds me a bit of the year 2000. The world didn't end when the clock struck 12, as the IT folks had promised it would. In fact, the floor fell out for IT, and it was coined the bonfire of the vanities. Many of the companies that had created a business around the fact that we would have chaos and madness in IT post 2000 dissolved, and many talented people were scattered into the wind. What's happening in the moment feels a bit like that to me. There were neat packaged bags of marbles. The bag has broken, and the marbles are now rolling around, trying to find a place, a niche, or to cluster with others and find a new bag. To make it more difficult, those moments where ideas sparked around the water cooler in the office or the coffee shop have to a large extent been eliminated. So finding a new path and a new purpose and staying on top of things is now a one-person mission about lifelong learning. Ian is an absolute marvel at this. Ian, perhaps you can give us some insight into your approach to lifelong learning, as well as to what books you think are worth reading at the moment.
Which books are worth reading at the moment is always the last one I've just read. I review a book each week, 49 weeks a year in Fin24, and I've been reading about 40 books a year on average over the last 19 years. So if you do the math, it's quite a lot of stuff. Okay. And the books I never slate a book. If I start reading and I see it's junk, I dump it. So every single book I've ever read, I've always thought that it's valuable and it's got something in it. The lifelong learning thing, I think, is something you simply cannot not do. The world is changing far too fast. And those people who are not keeping up by keeping their minds fresh with all sorts of ideas are really putting themselves at risk. I'll tell you why they decide in a couple of ways. First off, the cheapest way to learn anything is to buy a book. When a professor at a great university writes a book, it's taken him 2 or 3 years to put the book together, based on 3 or 4 years of education before. To go to his lecture will cost you tens of thousands, and you can buy the book for 250 Rand. It's fantastic. So it's an incredibly inexpensive way to do things. So I think that's important. And when we get to this company of one, we're now moving to an era where a lot of people are having to say, should I be a company of one? Let me just first off say, I think it's not a bad idea for many people, not for everyone, for many people. There are no general rules. For many people, this is a good idea. The company of one works like this. We've always believed that the best thing you can do is join a good company. You join a good company my grandfather, in his day, you joined a good company when you were 18, and you stayed there until you left at 65. And so what was success? Success was when you got into the CEO's office. Less success was getting close to it, and so on. When you change jobs incessantly, there would be something wrong with you. Yeah. You have no loyalty, or you can't get on with people. Those days are long gone. But the fact of the matter today is that the most dangerous place to be is in a corporation. I'm going to explain to you why I'm so passionate about this. If at the number of companies that have done extraordinarily well, companies that really, they've blown the lights out, fastest growing companies, when they've been looked at in studies 5 to 8 years later, something like 2/3 of those businesses either don't exist or have retrenched a lot of staff. Those are fast-growing companies. They are startups, big ones, very, very few of them. If you're working as a company of one, you've got security, and I'm going to tell you why. It's not just that you can't fire yourself, but that you're in control. You could do magnificently. Really, you join a bank, you're doing magnificent work. You're good, you're loyal, you're dedicated, and they've decided they're going to shed staff. I love that word, shed staff. Not take away a man's livelihood, shed staff. So you're one of those people, one of those people who now just been shed. You don't have any control. When you're in a company and you are the company, understand that you have a lot of control. But being a company of one is not it's not a simple thing, and it's setting up a company. We always think, wow, I would like a company, I want to grow really, really big. Most companies that grow big too fast crash and burn. We only hear about the few who don't. Majority crash and burn. So there you are thinking about what you should be doing now, and you might be saying to yourself, maybe I should go out on my own. It's not a bad idea, provided a couple of things. The one thing I think you have to accept is that if you're going to go out, the number one skill that you better have is competence and autonomy. I'll better explain both. You can't expect anybody to buy anything from you, whether it's a good or a service, if you're not competent. So don't worry about, do I need to be edgy? Don't bother about edgy. There's still people who cut people's hair with the scissors, and they can make a decent living out of it. There are people who do stuff. One of the fastest growing, more millionaires, the last time I looked, were made in the United States doing simple things like dry cleaning, and not all the fancy stuff. We still need all those things. Okay, so that's first set. But you've got to be extraordinarily competent. And the second thing is you have to be autonomous. Now, autonomous means I'm able to get the whole job done myself. If I can't do the whole job myself, don't start. If I need somebody else to tell me what to do, I'm not competent enough to be. Competence and autonomy. Then what you want to do is you want to see to it that you are proficient at all sorts of other things. If you're going to be a company called of one, you've got to be proficient at selling. Now, it's a funny thing that a lot of people who leave corporate, and we've got people like that inside of Gateways, who've left corporate as directors of international companies, and you say, are you going out there and selling? And he said, yes, I put I got somebody to put my profile on LinkedIn. If they want me, they'll find me. And it's stuff like that. Now, of course, it's absurd. You have to go out there and you have to really enjoy the act of selling. You also have to get things working well, organize yourself. I think that the other thing which is particularly important is to know that if you really want to do well, focus on getting better and better and better at what you're doing in the same amount of time. And then what happens is, because I can do better and better work in the same number of hours, I can vastly increase my income. I don't have to increase my client base, but my clients will be prepared to pay more for the stuff that I'm giving them. So find what you're really good at. The thing is this, it's important to say to yourself, what do I really know better than other people? Next question is, who do I know? And if you don't know people, don't expect to be able to find. And very often the people that you know don't have to be close. There's a wonderful study that was done, I'm trying to think which university, forget which one. It's a wonderful study anyway. What they did was they looked at where, in fact, the man who did this got a Nobel Prize for it even though he was now a professor, but he was a PhD student when he did it. They were looking at where do you find your first job. Now, when you say, listen, I've just lost my job, usually what you do is you ask all the people you know and who care about you. They're useless. They're useless. And I'll tell you why. They know exactly the same people that you know. There are people who you're close with, people you're not very close with, and people you were close with but aren't close with anymore. They found that the people that you aren't close with anymore but were close with are pretty good because they used to like you. You shared a dorm. You had a hell of a good time together. And when you phone them up again, they're happy to talk to you again. Those people are good. Lives have changed. They've gone in completely different directions. That's why you don't see much of them. Then those people that you see occasionally. What he proved in his thesis, PhD thesis, was that people with whom you are not close are more likely to be able to introduce you to a network of other people that will be very useful to you. So we need to worry about who you know and what do they know and what you know better than other people. The key with finding what you can do as a company of one is asking yourself, what am I very good at? What you should not ask yourself is, what am I passionate about? What is my passion? That is called nonsense. The fact is that a study was done at Quebec University. What they did was they asked students what they're passionate about. It turned out that they were more passionate about sport, art, and music than they were about the disciplines they were studying. The problem is that only 3% of available jobs are in sport, art, and music. 3%. So the key is this: don't follow your passion. I know that Oprah Winfrey said you've got to follow your passion. No, that's nonsense. Ask any out-of-work actress. She'll tell you how about following your passion. What you have to do is you have to worry about mastery. Find the thing that you're good at and really master it. And I'll tell you something else which will happen. You'll have passion because you're a master. Passion doesn't come first. You get passion because you've mastered something. There's one last thing. I'm going to stop babbling. Okay. Anyway, Steve Martin, the amazing comedian, he says that he often gets budding comedians coming up to him and say, listen, Steve, how do I find the right agent? Where do I get the best head and shoulders photographs? Which comedy club should I start at? And he says the only question they've got to ask, the only question that's intelligent is, how do I get really good at comedy? Now, I've seen every single person that I know who's starting a business has worried about their website. They've worried about their business cards. And you say, what are you wasting your time on that nonsense? That shouldn't even enter your mind. You've got to worry about how good am I? How good am I? And if I can find one client who says, damn, he's good, they're likely to say, damn, he's good, and tell somebody else. Or you can even ask them if they know anybody else. But the key is you've got to be damn good at something. And it doesn't matter what it is. And there's so many things you could be good at. It's unbelievable. When I've helped people try and find new things to do, there's no end of amazing things people can make money out of because they're good.
I agree with that 100%. I think that, we're cut from the same cloth to some extent. We're both entrepreneurs. I mean, I've been doing this since 1990. I've often thought maybe I should just go and find a job, but I think I'm sort of like unemployable. I'm sure somebody would just not employ me. And if I did get employed, I'd probably be there for about a month or two. I think because, we get something which interests us and we follow that and we work with it. And so I think we're cut from the same cloth to a large extent. But lifelong learning is very close to the heart of the unique specimen, which is the entrepreneur. I don't leave anything alone either. Everything fascinates me. And that's probably how we met as well, is through your books. I can remember the breakfast that we had at that Michelangelo Piccolo restaurant. And every time I'd come back, and by the fact that I was just so fascinated with the speed at which you read books, I found a site that now actually has little excerpts of books, and they've also done it for you. It's an app. Not as good as what you are. I can guarantee you that. But, it is easier to consume a lot of information and then spit out the bits that you don't like. But, you have some somewhat unusual views on entrepreneurs, and I heard it before when we've been talking before. And I think a lot of people are worried about the age, and I suffer. We have customers coming to us as well, and they'll say to us, I did a video and I posted it on Facebook and it hasn't gone viral. I haven't even had one view. And there's like this sense of shock horror, So I think we both sense the same kind of things. Perhaps you can share some insights in that with us.
Yeah. Let's just talk about this age thing for a moment. If you are in the United States, particularly in California and that area, generally investors will not look at a startup founded by anybody over the age of 32. That seems to be the cutoff point for most people. However, it doesn't accord with what we know as facts. Let me just give you what are facts. Facts are, there was a study that was done on looking at US census data. They had to look at the age of human beings who started businesses. Now, I'm not talking about started businesses in the 90s. I'm talking about starting businesses since the US had a census. That's probably 1890. They found that the average age of founders of businesses were around, average age, 42 years old. Not 32 years old, founders. However, founders who founded successful businesses, that's different, were aged 45 to 59. And you say, well, how about that? How does that happen? And by the way, this is averaging. So people way beyond that and a little bit younger than that, but that's about the average age. I'll tell you why it works like that. You see, when you are older, you've been around. Having been around, you understand how business works and how life works. Not only that, by that time, you've also got yourself a little bit of money. So you've got capital. Besides which, you've also got social capital. There are lots of people you know. There are lots of people you can call on. And because you're older, you're more mature, you've been around, you've met a lot of people, you'll have greater chance of building a successful business than somebody who's a whole lot younger. So this idea of age is nonsense. And I'm admittedly closer to 60 than I am to 50. I'm 68. I'm starting another business, and we're launching it in a recession, and it's going to be one of the best things I've ever done, and in every respect. And this business of you have to be young is a mistake. Young people don't have as much experience and therefore have less likelihood of actually being successful. Yes, I know Zuckerberg was young. He was lucky, and by the way, he was under adult supervision during when the business was being built. Yeah, and the other thing is, people tell you who you should go into. They always say, don't get involved with family. We all know that. Except that the longest lasting businesses in the world are family businesses. They last longer. Think of Cargill, think of Tata, think of Koch Industries, think of Walmart, think of Ford, all family businesses. So there are a lot of things which are not true about entrepreneurship. And by the way, every single thing I said, everything I've said to you the whole evening is average. That's what happens on average. Now, if there's an average, it means there's somebody way beyond that and somebody way above and below. Statistics never ever says anything about one person. So the fact that they say, and I think it's quite an important point, because I think we've become beguiled by numbers. We're beguiled by GDP numbers, all sorts of numbers we hear all the time. And when we don't really understand what the numbers are saying to us, we can think that they're meaningful. They're not meaningful. We must understand what they're meaningful about. And when I say that the average age is 58 or 55 or 48, it means averages. So there's people younger and there's people older. And who are you? Would you be in the younger one or the older one? It just means that these things are possibilities. Of course. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, well, that's interesting. And, I always find that encouraging. I think there's a lot of older people that have lost positions and are concerned and are thinking, where am I going to from here? But I think, you mentioned two things that were really important to me. The one is kind of like forget about your age and do what you do well. And I think a lot of those people do some really great things very, very well, So I think that, yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry interrupting. But if you think of it like this, a man trained to be a doctor. And he spent lost the same parking lot in the same building, and he's seen patients all day and nights all. And you say, now, what are you really good at? As well as trained as a doctor. No, but what are you really good at? And you find that if you said, now, what is he really good at? He's got a wonderful empathy with people who are weak or people who are ill. Just his empathy is so much better than anybody else. Or you might find the man's been a lawyer his whole life. And you say, listen, if you never knew law, how would you have made a living? He's some great negotiator. I can negotiate between people and they can come out right at the end. We need to just find what are you good at, and it often has nothing to do with what you're trained
in. Yeah, I think I ended up doing IT, and here I am today doing something in humanities, and it's not where I would have thought at all, but it's obviously something which attracts me. So yes, I understand that. You've just launched a fairly unusual venture, Ian. Would you like to tell us a bit more about it? In the middle of a pandemic, and off you go, you're going to go and launch a new venture.
Let me tell you what this is. The venture started 2 years ago. I mean, these things are very slow. We are going to be launching probably within the next, we should have been launching already, but because of COVID, it slowed things down. We will be the first commercial hatchery in the Southern Hemisphere. When I talk about hatcheries, we produce the machinery, the incubator that takes eggs, and then 21 days later, you get a little chick on the other side. The chickens do that really well. Hens do that really well. The problem is they do 10 at a time. How about if you want to do 50,000 at a time? That's the stuff or 100,000 at a time, or 1 million at a time. Now you have to scientifically recreate across 150, 500,000 eggs, exactly the right conditions for each one to be able to hatch. And we've got some really, really interesting patents, which will increase hatchability and increase the number. When you put eggs on the one side, you don't get all chickens on the chicks coming out on the other side. You get about 70%, 80%. So if you can just increase that a little bit by 2-3%, when you're putting 1 million in, that's real money. So we've been able to do that, and that's what we're going to be marketing as soon as all this has quietened down just a bit. We've probably been thrown back by about 4 months. Otherwise, we would have been launching now.
Something that I've always found very interesting is that when if you're moving and you're doing things, you'll stumble across something. If you're not moving and you're stagnant and you're not looking around and you're not learning new things, you stagnate and you don't find anything new, and you can't understand why nothing new is coming your way. So I'm sure that's exactly how you came to this. It was just by moving and looking and, looking what opportunities are there. And then when that window opens, being there, I think it was Will Smith who said, luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. And I thought, yeah, there we go. That's a good statement, isn't it?
Absolutely. I would just caution with one other thing. If anybody's going to go into, I think that you need to organize your business affairs in the following way. You need to work at 3 wheels. The first wheel must turn incredibly fast, and that will drive a bigger wheel, which moves a little slower, which is able to drive a very big wheel, which moves very slowly. Now, often people want to say, look, I want a business that's going to make me 30 million Rand a year. That's what I'm really looking for. I'm looking for that one thing that's going to do it for me. I would suggest don't waste your time. There's about one in a couple of million chance of that happening, maybe 1 in 50 million chance. Probably about as much as getting struck by lightning or winning the New York lottery. What you got to control is that very, very small wheel that pays the bills, pays for the rent, pays for the other thing, and that turns every single day. If that's turning every single day, it gives you the right to look for a wheel that's a bit bigger, because this is turning every day. And in addition to that, I can now have a wheel that's turning a little, so it produces a lot more money, but it only doesn't turn, it turns over a lot more money maybe once every month or 2 or 3. Based on the fact that these two wheels, the daily wheel and then the monthly or bi-monthly wheel, are both turning, I can now look at the one that turns over real money only maybe once a year, but real money. So the wheels get bigger and bigger, but if the small wheel isn't spinning, that's the company of one. If that one isn't spinning, nothing else can spin. And this idea of I'm looking for something big is, it's teenage.
So I think it is. So what I want to know is, what fundamental shift do you believe has taken place in SA as well as across the world as a result of the pandemic? And do you think we'll ever go back to where we were?
There was about 100 years ago. I don't know about the rest of the country. I know about Cape Town. 100 years ago, there was now you say, well, flu's just the sniffles. No, it wasn't just the sniffles. They didn't have antibiotics. People were running around the city of Cape Town trying to find lemons because they figured that's the only thing that's going to save them. And people were dying in the streets, literally dying in the streets. They were burying bodies in bunches. And then we came back. We have, us humans, we're quite smart. We seem to bounce back. And I think that we'll bounce back from this one as well. It will never, I thank God it'll never be the same. I think it's a nice corrective. It's like a cleansing process. I am never going to go to think that I need to be in an office all day. I just love working from home. It's fantastic. And this idea that, and then you discover how many cars do you actually need? And you realize there's a lot of things that you have that you just don't need a lot of or as much. I can't imagine. I went to work with a suit or sports jacket and smart clothing every single day. I haven't worn leather shoes in 6 months.
You used to have a driver as well, I remember, who used to drive you around so that you could work on the back seat. So, I mean, yeah, life has changed. I think that if we had not come as far as what we have come with digitization and the fourth generation or the fourth revolution of IT, I think we wouldn't have been placed where we are to have dealt with it. I mean, can you imagine what life would have been like if we didn't have what we've got now with Zoom and Google Meetup and Teams, etc.? I think we would be completely lost, so thank goodness it happened now and not 20 years ago. So if we look back at the old normal for a minute, and bar not wearing leather shoes and suits, what else is there that you would hate to see come back in business?
What was going on in our society up till now continues to go on. We now, because we're all under strain, we've realized how bad a society we were living in. Our healthcare system is terribly lopsided. We're living in an environment where 1% of the world, not get particular, 1% of the world owns 48% of all the assets. That's not skewed. That is insane. That's insane.
Yeah, I think there's just been such a lack of.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that there's been such a lack of recognizing each other's humanity and respecting it. So I think there's just, all of a sudden there's been a lot more respect from the point of view of, geez, I'm battling, so they must be battling too. And people are understanding what that means, what is important, really important, and what isn't. So I think those things for me, I would not like to change. I would like that to continue because I think humanity is very special and we don't treasure it enough. So, Ian, on that note, I'd like to thank you for your participation and wise words. And if anybody has questions for Ian or for us or comments they'd like to pass, please put them down in the information bars below and we'll get back to you. Ian, a final word from your side?
The piece that the book I reviewed, which will be in Fin24, or obviously News 24 you can find as well. And you'll see Ian Mann reviews, go into the little thing, look for it. The last book I've written is How to Become a Polymath. A polymath it's Greek for somebody who knows a lot of things. They talk, obviously, you get incredible polymaths, but this man has written a book, and the review I did in it, how can anybody become a polymath? And the way he describes it is not that you can be what they can do, but you use the same methods that they did, and anybody can use this, I promise you. I think it's well worthwhile looking at how I can learn more things about lots of other things than I normally know now, and in a formal way.
It's a bit like an autodidact in some ways.
Indeed, exactly that.
Thank you so much for your time, Ian. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you soon again.
Indeed. Thank you.
Cool. So if you found this useful, please hit the button below and like. Otherwise, subscribe, follow, share, and more importantly, talk to us. You can complete our book consultation form on our website. And if you'd like to get more contact details for Ian, just get hold of us. We will publish it in the lists below. Tomorrow, which is Friday, we've got Rest the Cape with Marvelous Matt. So he'll give you some insights into what to do for the weekend so that you're not at home all day. And with being in level 1, wow, there's a lot that we can do. And next week, Thursday, at Spark and Discovery, I'll have Brenda Lazarson on our show. And we'll be discussing neuroplasticity and what we can do to manage how our brain manages difficult times. And yes, we can manage the narrative of these times. So until next week or Monday when I do Cape Up, thank you for your time and good night.